What's up, Trek Nation, and welcome back to Trek by Numbers on After the Snap. It's me, Tasha Pierce, and we are continuing our coverage of Season 5, Episode 8, across the franchise of Star Trek. This time we are covering Things Past from DS9. In this one, Sisko, Odo, Dax, and Garak are trapped 7 years in the past on Terok Nor, but everyone else thinks that they're condemned Bajorans, and only Odo's memory can save them. This one is written by Michael Taylor, directed by LeVar Burton, and if you'd like to know what I think about this here episode, let's go. As I said before, we've got a quartet of our main cast, Sisko, Dax, Odo, and Garak. They are returning from a conference on Bajor in a runabout. They encounter a plasma storm, and then they fall unconscious. And even though we've got some heavy hitters in this episode, trust me when I say it's a very Odo-centric episode. Our 4 DS9ers wake up on Terok Nor in this past timeline during the Cardassian occupation of Bajor. Nobody recognizes them. They appear to be just some regular Bajoran workers. Now, during this bizarre stay on Terok Nor, Odo starts having visions of dead Bajorans, and he seems to know details about their false Bajoran identities. So these identities that have been taken on by Sisko, Dax, and Garak are quite familiar to Odo. These 4 are not allowed to stay together for too long. Dax is separated from the group. She's taken to Gul Dukat, who wants her as a comfort woman. That actually sounds sick, but we know that DS9 was not afraid to go there. Now the other 3 went to work for Quark. While they're there, there's an assassination attempt on Gul Dukat. So Sisko, Odo, and Garak are all accused and imprisoned. At a point in the episode, Dax is able to help them escape. So when they escape, they get caught, and then they are sentenced to death for this assassination attempt. Now here is when Odo starts remembering exactly why this situation seems familiar to him. He reveals that he let 3 innocent Bajorans be executed in the past, and these visions are kind of a manifestation of his guilty conscience. Odo, in this timeline, begins to beg for the lives of the Bajorans, quote unquote, that are about to be executed, who are really Sisko, Dax, and Garak. And he attacks the executioner, claiming that he's not going to let this happen again. At that point, everybody turns back to their normal self, and they still see Odo hanging out with Gul Dukat and other Cardassians. Our DS9ers stand by and watch as the 3 wrongfully accused Bajorans are executed. Now, this episode occurs in Season 5, of course, of DS9, and this was after the founders had forced Odo to remain a solid. Turns out that this whole experience was triggered by Odo's residual shapeshifter enzymes. So the 4 DS9ers wake up back in the present, and Odo is left to confront his failure of justice under the Cardassians. This episode is a very solid episode. Usually the Odo-centered episodes are. It explores a dark chapter in Odo's past as the security chief on Terok Nor, and then also that guilt over letting innocent Bajorans die. And it provides us a little more insight into his character, the character of the character that we know as Odo during the Cardassian occupation. We know the character that we have become familiar with has a very strong sense of justice. That sense of justice is what leads Odo. And he realizes that when he allowed justice to take a back burner during the occupation, that he was complicit. We know that the Cardassian occupation of Bajor was meant to resemble real-world military occupations where the ruling power exploits and oppresses occupied people. This has similarities to things like the Nazi occupation of much of Europe during World War II. And the Bajoran resistance movement is reminiscent of resistance groups that have fought back against real occupying forces, like French resistance fighters against Nazi Germany. Odo, working as security chief for the Cardassians, has always paralleled situations where someone served a governing power during an unjust occupation, raising later questions about their own complicity in the atrocities that occurred. We are exploring these themes of guilt, oppression, and all of the moral dilemmas that are faced by people who are living under occupation. The Cardassian justice system with predetermined verdicts echoes some real totalitarian regimes. And then Dukat. He is such an interesting character, but in this episode especially, his self-professed benevolence as the occupying ruler has parallels to many historical dictators. I have always loved how the writers drew inspiration from history, some dark chapters in history, but then they set the story in this futuristic sci-fi context. I like the way that they can tie this futuristic society in with some of the things that we have seen in humanity's past as a kind of way to warn us to not let it happen again. Yet, we're seeing it happen again and again. In the episode, Odo was seen as relatively sympathetic to Bajorans, but he ultimately failed them by not opposing Cardassian oppression or pursuing real justice. He prioritized order over protecting the innocent. And this revelation continued to add depth and moral complexity to Odo's character. His failure haunted him for years. The visions of the dead Bajorans were the burden that he had to carry throughout his life, and he kept this secret, not telling Kira or the others this dark chapter in his life, because he knew that there was more that he could have done for these people. As far as a grade for this episode, I can't give it anything less than an A. It did so much to, I would say, humanize Odo, and to make us realize why he takes justice so seriously now, because he failed to do so in the past. He followed laws under an unjust occupation instead of doing what was just, and it has informed his character moving forward. This episode reminds us that even though we met someone at a point in their life where they got their shit together, that everybody has a past, and we do not condemn people for their past if they have made amends, true amends. And it's obvious and evident that Odo has made true amends for his failure to act during the Bajoran occupancy, especially in this situation. Now, Odo also claimed that no other innocent Bajorans were ever harmed under his watch, but then he admits, I can't be certain, he hopes no other people died due to his inaction. This is a burden that he's going to carry, like I said earlier, and this allows us to kind of grow as an audience, because now we are forced into this ethical dilemma, and we have to take the Odo that we knew from seasons 1 through 5 of DS9 and recognize the growth. By the time we get to DS9, Odo has come to reject the brutal Cardassian version of quote-unquote order that he once followed. He shows that he cares about true justice, even when it means opposing his old allies. We appreciate that he admitted his guilt. Odo doesn't defend his past failure, but he shows remorse when confronted with the consequences for these innocent Bajorans. Then we see his struggles with moral complexity. It allows us to see him as not purely good or evil, but a morally gray character trying to do better. And that is what makes many of the characters in DS9 so fantastic. They do have a kind of ambiguity about where they land on the spectrum of good and evil. Their failures make them more complex. And then we find empathy for these flawed characters who admit their mistakes. And Odo was in an impossible situation, right? He was trying to survive under the Cardassians himself. And in this situation, he prioritized his own survival. We have to understand that Odo has made decent choices in this present DS9 timeline. We can't change the past, but he can learn from it. So did he learn from those choices? Well, his desire to do what's right now and going forward shows the growth of the character. And he now dedicates himself to justice for all as a security officer, which is a very small step towards redemption, but it's a step nonetheless. This fictional character allows us to believe or understand that we can forgive Odo. I won't even make this about something real life. We can forgive Odo while still condemning his actions under the Cardassian. And we can ask ourselves, would we have the same moral failings in a difficult situation like Odo? So you tell me what you thought about this episode. I would love to hear it down in the comments. While you're there, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn your notifications on so you won't miss Engage Live, our Sunday live streams, where we have some really deep, really thoughtful discussions on Star Trek and other subjects. Right now we are talking Lower Deck Season 4, but the conversation doesn't stop over there. By the way, if you like to support the show, there are a myriad of ways to do so. You'll find those in my Linktree in the show notes. And finally, I would like to say thank you to the people who have already made the plunge. You are a beacon of light in a sepia-toned world. Thank you once again for hanging out with me. I appreciate you guys for being here today. The next episode in our Trek by Numbers series is Voyager Season 5, Episode 8. It's called Nothing Human, and in it, an injured non-humanoid alien attaches itself to Lieutenant Torres, and a hologram of a notorious Cardassian exobiologist is created to help the Doctor remove it from her. Gosh, these are such timely episodes. Season 5, Episode 8 are the gifts that just keep on giving. I can't wait to chop this one up with you, so please join me. Please join me. And I will see you in the next one, y'all. Live long and prosper. Peace.